I built and painted my own Miniature Chasmfiend from scratch. Here's how I did it. I started with two main guidelines. Number one was I needed it to be as lore accurate as possible, so I collected a bunch of references, especially from the Way of Kings, during the Chasmfiend hunt near the beginning of the book. And so from that, I knew that the 4 first limbs needed to be claws, and then the rest of the limbs needed to be talon-like legs, and the whole model needed to be painted a dark violet, inky color. The second parameter was that I wanted to be able to play with this Chasmfiend with my Alethi army with Warhammer Age of Sigmar games. And so I looked around and I found the best model that would fit that Chasmfiend feel in terms of points value, rules, and sheer size of the model would be the Mega Gargants. These are the biggest models in Age of Sigmar. They fit on a 130mm round base, and they are about 8 inches tall. To achieve that height as well as fitting on the base, I decided to go on the same pose from when they first encountered the Chasmfiend, where it crawled out of the chasm next to this rock spire. The model that I chose to base this off of was the Warhammer 40k Tyrannid Trigon model. Now this, every time I looked at this model, I always had it in the back of my head that looked like a baby Chasmfiend. Luckily, someone in my local Warhammer gaming community was selling their Tyrannid army, and I was able to grab this Trigon model off of him for a fraction of the price. It would serve as a great foundation for my Chasmfiend. But I needed more. I knew I needed a taller model than just that, and so I found these Carnifex models, which are also from the Tyrannid range, and I purchased these new because I needed to get the claws as well as the body parts and just have more control over how I wanted this model to come together with the Trigon model that I already had. I started out, I took the Trigon model apart, cut it in half, and then put the Carnifex models together. Here you can see the bottom half of the Trigon model with the 2 Carnifex bodies stacked on top, just to kind of get the feel of how would this look if it was coming out of the chasm. So using lots of glue and green stuff, I set the bottom half of the Trigon and the first Carnifex body together. I added the smallest limbs on the bottom, posing them as if they were crawling up that rock face. For the rock spire itself, I use a styrofoam cone I found in Hobby Lobby in the flower section, and I cut it down to size a little bit. I added some cork bits, some green stuff, and some rocks to give it some nice texture and to resemble coming out of the dark chasm below. So after adding all the limbs and claws and extra spiky bits, I had a Chasmfiend assembled. It looks like a hodgepodge of stuff, but that's what I really like about kit bashing like this, is that I take something from my head and I'm able to put it together and create something cool that no one else has created before. Then came the hard part of painting the model. Here I primed everything black because I knew I needed that dark, inky color. And if you look closely at the rock spire, you'll see that the spray paint ate away at the styrofoam, and giving the rock a terrible pockmarked texture, and all those white spots are little holes. So I decided to keep pushing on from here, but in hindsight I should have stopped and redone the material for the rock spire. I painted the spire the same way that I painted the bases of my Alethi army, and ended up really liking the final look of it. For the Chasmfiend itself, I followed a tutorial from Duncan Rhodes. I painted the skin a dark gray, and it gave a nice contrast with that plate armor. For the plate armor itself, I had a base dark black, and then I went through and highlighted with some purple to get that violet feel to it. I really liked it, and so I kept pressing forward with it. In the end, it's a lot of highlighting, and it kind of looks a little bit overwhelming. Maybe I'll go back and tone it down a bit so it's not so bright. Overall, I loved how this model turned out. It took me over a year to complete, but it was so rewarding to see such an iconic monster from the Stormlight Archives come to life on the tabletop. I've played with this model once in an Age of Sigmar game. It was super fun, and I'm excited to get him back on the table here pretty soon. I'm also really excited to see how this model will compare to the Stormlight premium miniatures that are coming out in a few months, and we'll see the size difference, and maybe I'll be able to play with both of them on the tabletop at the same time. So, how did I do? Do you like this Chasmfiend? Does it match what you envisioned a Chasmfiend look like? Leave your feedback in the comments below. Give me a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.